Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we are joined by a very special guest. He is the reason we are here at episode 100. He is a father, husband, and a podcast coach, Mr. Rory Paquette. How you doing today, Rory?
Oh, better than I deserve, brother. How are you today?
I'm doing great. So, first thing I want to kind of touch on, because it's the 100th episode, you're my very special guest because none of this would probably be possible without you. I want you to let the audience know how we first met.
Oh my gosh. Well, before I go anywhere with this, I got to say congratulations. Ryan, you are just doing a fantastic job, man. And 100 episodes is a huge milestone. And I'm absolutely honored to be your guest on your 100th podcast. That's absolutely fantastic. And thank you for having me. You and I, we met. It was in a podcast group on Facebook. We were going back and forth. And I can't remember who reached out to who, but you were talking about giving your testimony. And I contacted you about being on one of my podcasts, Power Man. And so we had a phone call just to make sure we were all on the line. I was still doing little pre-interview action back then, which I don't do anymore. And then I had you on the podcast, man. And you were a great guest.
Yeah. Like that was the first meeting. And we lost contact for a couple months, didn't we? It was 2-3 months that we didn't even speak or anything.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and then I was doing some coaching, and I don't know where it came from. It was like out of the blue. It was like, man, Ryan, yeah. And I think maybe I saw your name on one of my episodes. I was doing some work. I started thinking about you again, and all of a sudden I was like, you got to contact this guy because you know what? He needs to have a podcast. I think that's going to help him get started with everything he wants to do. And I contacted you, reached out to you, and then we had a Zoom meeting to talk about stuff. And you're like, oh my gosh, man, I just decided to start doing a podcast. I have no idea what I'm doing. So let's talk. And it was just, I mean, I really do believe God called me to call you and say, hey man, go talk to Ryan. And I did. And the rest is history, dude. 100 episodes and
Yeah.
you're killing it. I mean, you're well known now, man. This is awesome.
That was kind of crazy because, when you first said, have you ever thought about doing a podcast? I was like, man, that's funny. I'm supposed to actually record my first episode today, and I have no clue what I'm doing whatsoever. And I remember recording 2 episodes back to back days, and I was so nervous and scared, didn't know what to do. Yep. And it's funny, look how far I've come in 10 months, I think.
No, you've honestly you came right to podcasting. I mean, it was a natural thing for you. You could tell you love doing it. You love talking to the people. You love getting stories out there. And I know that you have other aspirations down the road that you're working towards. But brother, the podcast has just decided it's going to love you back. And I mean, 100 episodes. There's people I talk to every day who are dying to get to 100 episodes. And you just walked right up to it and kicked the door in and said, "Here's 100 episodes, man. I'm good."
I don't know if I kicked the door in as I was kind of carried along the way. So, number one question the audience is probably wondering: who is Rory Paquette?
Oh gosh, Rory Paquette is first a father of 3 grown kids. One got married last December, one got married last week, and the last one gets married next week. So I'm still alive. So he's a father of 3 wonderful kids. He's a husband to the most incredible woman in the world who could do better than me on accident and still has stayed with me. I have no idea why. And I'm a coach, and I do what I love every single day. I get to coach veterans and men on being better fathers and husbands. I get to coach podcasters like yourself on how to become, better podcasters. And I get to coach speakers on how to get on stages and get paid to do it. And it's just absolutely amazing. I'm living my best life right now, brother. That's who I am.
That's awesome. Why did you start podcasting of all things? Because it was relatively new and you just seen that need for it and just said, hey, I'm going to start podcasting.
It was, I suppose COVID had a lot to do with it, just like everybody. I think everybody has a COVID story, in our business somewhere. But I was doing speaking years ago. I was in real estate. I did a lot of that. I I have always kind of been a communicator. I've always been a teacher. I've always been a coach of some kind, coached youth sports forever and that type of thing. And I just had things that I needed to say, and so I was kind of looking for a venue for that. And then everything kind of crashed and hit one of the lowest points in my life. When I got out of that, I realized that I had, really had been alone going through those really tough, low points. And my my whole vision changed at that moment. And it wasn't really about getting the message out for coaching and teaching and everything else anymore. It was about trying to make sure that there were no other fathers and husbands with, especially with the economy and the world we lived in at the time, that were out there just feeling completely and totally isolated and alone, like I had. And so I really said, look, I don't want anybody to feel that way. And podcasting seems to be a way where I can start talking and I can start sharing a lot of the things I've been through. I can start sharing the mistakes that I've made. I can share the misfortune that has, that I've walked into, things I've caused, and things that kind of happened to me. But I can share that so that men know there's other men out there going through it. And that was really the biggest impetus to me getting into podcasting, because it was a good venue to be able to reach fathers and husbands to let them know they weren't alone anymore. And that's where I started Power of Man.
What type of backlash did you get from the Power Man?
Yeah, wow. At the time, I've been doing this about 6 years, and at the time, masculinity was really under fire. I mean, like, it's under fire today still, but oh man, was it under fire back then. It was being viewed as terrible. Any father who tried to be a strong man was being vilified. Young men were being vilified for trying to be strong. The family was under fire. I received so much hate; it was not even funny. From the very first episode, I had people who were contacting me on social media, telling me how evil I was and calling me every name in the book. In the first 2 years of doing it, I received 3 death threats, actual death threats. Part of what we had, gotten into, I think maybe around episode 90-ish, I had made a lot of contacts in terms of fathers' rights, and guys who were divorced and just getting destroyed in the courts, things like that. So we did a lot of episodes on those back then. And I had a fathers' rights expert come on, and we had a very, very open and honest conversation about how the courts work and, what men have to deal with. And immediately after that, I got the worst death threat I ever got. I mean, the guy had my name, my address, the whole bit, and was like, yeah, I won't, read the threat, out loud, but it basically was the most believable of all of them. And, you can contact the cops, you can do whatever you want, but there's nothing they can do online. That stuff is, oh, well, I guess if he kills you and we catch him, then we'll have this as something in the file, but there's really not anything they can do, and that was probably the only time that I was really unsettled with all of it. And I just said, look, how much do I believe in this? How much do I believe in what I'm doing? And I really had to decide that I was willing to die for this. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love this so much, is because I was faced with that kind of decision early on in my podcasting life of, are you willing to actually lose your life over doing this? And I said, you know what? Yeah, I am. I believe in it that much. My kids are grown. I'm good. My wife, she could find another guy better than me in an accident. So you know what? But in all seriousness, I had a lot of hate, a lot of backlash, brother. So we still get a lot of hate, but I've still only had the 3 death threats. But with the stuff I've done lately, I've gotten even more hate. From other podcasts, which I know we've talked about. But so the hate doesn't go away; it just sort of moves and changes, and it may change form, but. Since those 3 death threats, I've had 2 that were really close to being death threats, but not quite, what the police consider death threats, but, still threatening. So yeah, lots of hate, man.
So why do you think everybody was getting so up in arms just because you wanted to promote like how hard that men were being abused in society?
There's a lot of folks out there um, who only believe what they're told. They believe what they are told through social media. They believe what they're told through um, the mainstream media, things like that. And anything that was viewed as masculine, right, was automatically toxic masculine. And anything that was fathers was automatically sexist. Well, mothers go through that too, and well, hey, how come you're not talking about mothers? My answer was always, I'm not a mother. I'm not going to talk on a podcast and give people advice on how to deal with things that I haven't been through. I've always come from a very authentic place in all of my podcasts. And I don't believe in faking who I am or pretending to be something I'm not. So I've always answered those questions very simply, with I'm, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I've made a ton of mistakes, and I hope that the people listening can learn from those mistakes and maybe not make them. I don't present myself as some expert like, hey, I know what to do. I present myself as a fallible man who has made the mistakes. People can't handle that though. And people who never listen to the show and who have no idea what it's about simply saw the title and it says Power of Man. And they went ballistic. They lost their minds, And so, I mean, in all fairness, most of these folks were politically aligned with, a certain side that just hated that. And so they were looking for something to lash out online. They found me and they said, hey, let's go lash out. So, that's kind of where I think most of it came from. The death threats got personal. So those people had a serious axe to grind. But other than that, most of it is just political, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your other podcasts?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. After Power Man, I started one that's just become a giant hit. It's called The Podcaster Nation. And that is because I love podcasting so much. And it's a place for podcasters like yourself to come on and be interviewed, right, about their podcasts and talk about, who they are and what they do and the story behind why they started their podcast. That's been a really neat community to help grow. Let's see, after that, I did. The one that I have is called Wake Up the Lions, which is something I was called to do. And that's a podcast for Christians to come on and share their testimony and encourage others to share their testimonies as well, to try and get folks to stand up and be counted and be proud of their faith, because Christians really are just get run over anymore, and in the grand scheme of things. That podcast is doing fantastic also. I have two that I've started fairly recently. One that is called Step Up to the Mic, and that's for aspiring and current speakers to come on and actually deliver their talk. They come on, I introduce them, I disappear from the screen, and they give the talk. And one thing that does, I learned this with working with speakers, is that one of the hardest parts for people who want to become speakers is getting the recording of them doing the speech. And I learned that in real time with a good friend of mine who I'm looking at right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. They
right.
don't want to hand that out. I think that one I did in what was it, last summer? They're finally getting me my stuff now.
Isn't that crazy?
It's like, and it ended up being like they told us it was actually a keynote when they signed us up, and then it was end up being just like an interview, so like I was going on a podcast.
Yeah. It's I saw that as a need, and I want to give you credit because this was you and I working together, and I realized that one of these things, that the stumbling blocks you were hitting, was trying to get that kind of thing so you could send that out to speaker bureaus or to event planners and stuff like that, was a video of you doing your actual talk. And it just hit me one day, and I was thinking about you. So I want to give you credit for that podcast. You're one of the reasons why I started, brother, because I was trying to find a solution to that for you. And I went, you know what? Ding, ding, ding. Why don't we do this? We have been doing it a very short time. I've already had somebody who messaged me after they were on the show and said, hey, I took that link, I sent it off, I got a gig. I said, you're kidding me. And they went, no, it was awesome. It was the last piece I needed, was me being recorded on this show.
Yeah.
And it made everything, it validated everything we were doing. So that's fourth podcast going. and and then the fifth one I just started this week. I'm putting it on Podmatch actually this weekend. And it's called The Right Path, and it's WRITE, Right Path. It's for authors to come on and, of course, talk about their books and their projects, but also the story behind the book and why they wrote it and what went into it, and the work and the toil behind the scenes, the journey itself, to really kind of get deep into it with authors, with writers, who are working on these things. So I'm really excited about that podcast because when you look at podcasters and speakers and authors are sort of that last group of people I haven't been able to really help yet, that I normally deal with. And now with this podcast, we can. And it's been just absolutely wonderful working with the folks that I'm working with already on it. All I did was put out a little message in one group, and I got like 80 people immediately who said, "Oh my gosh, I want to be on the show." You know, you know how it goes. You and I
Yeah.
both been through that, right?
It's funny though that when you talk to a lot of authors, what they do, they'll go on podcasts and they'll sign up to go on them, but they don't. They think like going on a few podcasts, their book's going to go like sell 1 million copies just by going on one episode or something. It's like, hey, this takes a lot of time to get your name out there, though.
Exactly, exactly. So they need as many podcasts as they can get, of course, to get on there. But they also need to make the biggest impact that they can. And
Yeah,
so I'm helping authors with some of that too. That's part of the coaching that I'm offering now. Also, is helping authors come on and make the impact that they need to make while they're on the podcast. So and we're gonna make sure that we don't just ask the same 7 questions that everybody
yeah,
asks.
yeah. I
So
I like it because you get a deep dive into their story and like what challenges they faced when they had to write it, and like what's behind writing it more
yeah.
than what's the actual content in the book.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. So thank you. Appreciate that. But
Yeah,
those are the 5 that are mine that I run myself. And then I've had the opportunity to be a co-host on a podcast called Boiling Point, Faith and Fire. And on that podcast, we do talk about some political issues. We talk about how it intersects faith. I'm sort of the faith piece, and my co-host is the fire piece. And my job is to kind of keep her from burning everything down, I think, on every episode. So that's been a lot of fun being on that podcast, also. But those are the podcasts I'm doing, brother. That's where I'm at.
awesome. How were you able
Yeah.
to build them up so you could walk away from your traditional job?
Ooh, boy, that's a big loaded question. Like that, oh, man. I tell you what, I started early with Power Man on trying to find sponsors or advertisers, things like that, any way to attempt to monetize, right? I started doing coaching for other men, and I do. That's been a flourishing practice of mine for a while. It was something that I started part time, and then when it got big enough, and I had enough men, who were coming to me and talking to me about trying to avoid making the same mistakes that I make, when they came on, then I kind of said, "Hey, maybe it's time to move to full time," because I can help more men and so on. Um, it's a little erratic, income wise, so it's always tough to say goodbye to that full time job, to that that extra paycheck. But the coaching and sponsorships were the first way to really allow me to start thinking that way. And then the issue, honestly, was that I just couldn't take the leap. I was like, wow, I have people who depend on me and so on. Well, I got to the point where, my youngest little baby boy left the nest. We were empty nesters. My wife and I had a long conversation about downsizing, sold our house and everything. We were like, why do we have a 3,000 square foot house, that was built for 3 children? They're all gone. Why are we here? Why are we doing this? And so we really changed our lives around. And when we did, the idea was, hey, we're going to, start to do some things that we really want to do, just for us. We're going to change our lives too. Well, you make all kinds of great plans, and then God intercedes and says, "Hey, that's a great plan, but whack." And there you go. And I almost died a year ago, and it was brutal, what happened to me. But while I was laying there in the hospital, thinking I wasn't going to make it, the my wife and I had a lot of time, in the hospital, at night in the dark. You can't watch the same 3 channels on the TV anymore. It's like, and we're just talking. and talking and talking and talking. And through all that, we collectively decided that I was never going to go work for anybody else ever again. I was never going to wake up in the morning and hate my life. And I was, with the life I had left, I was going to spend it enjoying it with my wife and my children. And I had already built this up in podcasting, and all I needed to do was make the leap. And I'm pretty sure that was God telling me it's time to make the leap, stupid. So get going, whack. And I also realized that I needed to make a lot of what I was doing about him, and that changed everything for me. And it really changed my focus. It led me to serving him a whole heck of a lot more. And man, it's been a great year ever since. So there you go.
Awesome. What led you to start coaching them?
I've always been a coach, really. I'm Coach U Sports, coached realtors forever. I was in real estate for a long time, and I had training programs for realtors. I did training programs for the company I was a part of. I was with Century 21 for a while. I did a lot of regional stuff with them. So I mean, I did a lot of coaching when I was younger, and as I was coming up, I started to coach fathers and husbands um, when I launched Power Man, because I saw the mistakes that I had made. I had a lot of guys who started calling me and DMing me and contacting me and saying, "Hey, this is going on. What do you think about this?" And I kind of realized, I have this platform, and I have people who right now are actually actively asking me for help. They're asking me, "Hey, what do you think of this?" Or "What's your advice on this?" Because they're facing the same types of things that I'm facing. And I said, I probably should work with these guys a little more than just, some quick DM answer. Well, once you start working with people and you're going back and forth on more than one DM back and forth, you're like, I'm actually coaching these people, and this is taking a lot of time. I can't do this and still work, right? So you have to start charging for it. You put it into a business, you build a program, and you say, hey, I'm going to do this, and hey, I'm going to charge you for it, but I'm going to be here for you, and this is how we're going to do it. And guys were like, hey, great, I don't mind paying for your time a little bit. Let's go. And you just put a reasonable price on it, and you start coaching. And as long as you're telling them the truth and being honest, and you're helping people and they're getting something out of it, then they want to keep coaching with you, and it works out pretty good. So it started there in terms of this, what I'm doing now with Power Man. And at one point, there was a gentleman in my Power of Man group who said, "Hey, man, I love what you're doing with your podcast. How can I start my own?" Started coaching him on how to start his podcast. And then I realized, I've been doing this a while. I've built this up. I've made every mistake you can make in podcasting. I've tried all the normal things that everybody tells you to do. I know what doesn't work, and I know what's full of crap. And I've come up with some creative ideas of my own. So you know what? Maybe there's something there. And so I started offering podcast coaching, and people just jumped on. And I built that up pretty quickly, actually. And so that's the main thing that I do now is the podcast coaching with folks. And there's so many aspects to podcast coaching. Some people want to learn how to get started. Some people want to learn how to monetize. Some people want to learn how to just be better and improve their numbers. There's a social media aspect to it. So I coach all the different pieces of it now. And, I just try to match what I'm coaching somebody on with what it is they really need in their particular situation. And that's where we are now.
Yeah. So, what types of services go all into it that you provide for everybody?
Um, let's see. I mean, I have several programs right now. I have one main program where I'll work with somebody for 3 months at a time, and we meet every week. It's a Zoom call every week, and people have homework to do during the week, and they do the homework, and we follow up on it, and then we keep moving to the next step as we go. And that's kind of the base program for people who either are starting a podcast or have one, and want to like really improve. For people who have a podcast and have a particular need, like, hey, I really need to just work on my numbers. How can I do that? Or hey, I really want to get into monetizing. How can I do that? I run a shorter program for them now, and it really depends on them. Usually, it's about 4 to 6 sessions. Doesn't have to be weekly. It's if somebody's going quick and they're finishing all the homework, we can do 4 sessions in 2 weeks. If they need more time because of their day job, 4 sessions might take 6 or 8 weeks. But they pay for a much smaller package up front. We focus on that one particular thing they're really trying to do. And when the sessions are over, we say, hey, where are we at? Do you need to keep moving? We need to keep, coaching. Do we need another round? Where are you? And sometimes it's, hey, I got it. I love this. Thanks a lot. And sometimes it's, you know what? I still don't quite get this. Let's do one more round of this because I want to work on this, this, and this. So it's become a lot of that right now. I have a program for just about everybody, and I'm absolutely open and willing to tailor something for everybody who's out there, depending on what they need. And I'm still, one of the cheapest guys on the planet. I don't charge $5,000 or something for my program. I want to work with as many people as I can because, as networking in this business is everything.
Yeah.
I have so many students out there like yourself that I'm so incredibly proud of, and that I get to just see flourishing, out on this stage that we have. Honestly, it's one of the things that fills me up every day, man. Is just seeing folks like you. I mean, you hitting 100 episodes, man, just fills my heart. I get to sit here and go, hey, I had a little something to do with that. I got to help him with that. He did the work. Look at him go. I mean, I have 3 children that I'm immensely proud of. And I have all these students out there that I'm also immensely proud of. And, when you think about leaving a legacy behind and you've helped all these people do this fantastic stuff they're doing, you sleep pretty well at night. It's a neat way to go.
Yeah, you definitely held me accountable and made me put the work in. That was the one thing that I can really say that you held me accountable to get things done. Like the one time I remember calling you or texting you, and this was what you told me. You go, well, you don't even have to start doing a post, a story, and a reel on Facebook. But I was a go-getter, did the reel that first day, even though I didn't have to. That second day came along, you're like, oh, you didn't do a reel yet? I'm like, well, no, why wasn't supposed to start yet? And you're like, how bad do you really want it? I just remember you saying, how bad do you really want to do what you tell me you want to do? I'm like, I just went mad. And then I went and did it and said, done.
I wasn't sure which story you were going with. So I'm like, oh boy, what's he going to tell everybody? Yeah. I remember one of those with you. It was like, man, I'm so tired. It was like 11 o'clock at night, but I did this. I didn't do this, but I'll do it tomorrow. And I'm like, are you asleep yet? You still got time. What's going on? And you're like, I can just hear you cursing me, a state away. And the next thing you know, you texted back and said, I did it. Good night. And I was just like, there you go. All right. Good job, Ryan.
Because my schedule, like nobody understood, like my schedule was so hectic at the time and still is with trying to fit everything in. Like, man, their 24 hours is just not enough time for me, I don't think at times.
No, I give you all the credit in the world, man. You were working full time. You were coaching, kids like live, with a team, in person. So putting all that time in, you were also doing a coaching business, you know what I mean? On the side, it was like, plus you were building a podcast. You were trying to fit in interviewing for everybody. I mean, then you had to market the podcast. You're doing social media. I mean, I felt for you because I was like, I've been there. I understand, and you were spread really thin.
Was probably the worst because, like, I even took a break there because I took a break for a while, as you know, and my numbers still haven't got up like they were before that. And I'm looking at it like it's all about the algorithm and what times you're posting. I'm like, well, I'm busy at this time instead of, not posting at that time. So my posts aren't going out there to as many people as what it was. It's crazy when you look at it.
Yeah, the algorithm hits everybody a little different, it really does. But we've had those conversations, that.
Yeah.
But trying to be creative too. I mean, you put out good stuff. You don't just put out garbage posts either. You know what I mean? You're not just putting up a picture of like a napkin holder, And,
yeah.
You're,
that was the thing. Like
doing it.
Other people were talking to me about what I'm posting. It's like, well, why don't you go post on this site too? I'm like everything I post is different on different sites because I want everything to be original and come from a place of authenticity that like shows me as a person and not, hey, I can just continually post the same thing on every site. So everybody that I'm friends with sees it on every site. Like, dude, we've already seen it,
Right. Exactly.
I want somebody to be like, oh, that's different.
Yep. I mean, you held yourself to a very high standard with what you were doing. It's why you're as successful as you are right now.
Yeah.
So, again, I applaud everything you've done, but it makes it a lot harder. People who are not in the business and who are not trying to do it every single day, they're sitting there and they're going, it's a post. What's the big deal? It takes 5 seconds, put up a post, man. Well, yeah, not when you're doing all the other stuff and you're posting separately and differently on every single platform.
Yeah.
Brother, you were absolutely killing it. And it is tough. It is
Yeah.
tough to get those last few done because you just want to be like, I can't do this anymore. My brain's fried. My back's killing me. I got to lay down. It's 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And you're like, if you don't have that mentality that says, yeah, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, but you know what? 2:15 is not going to hurt you any worse. So get it done. That's a little tougher, but you
Yeah.
did it. That's
Yeah.
why you are where you are. So very
Awesome.
cool.
What's the biggest challenge your clients seem to face?
Ooh, my clients. Huh, very good question. Let's see. I mean, I help folks with a lot of different things. Monetization is always something that people want to know about. They want to hear about because I think everybody wants to get something back from what they're doing. Um, so I get contacted a lot about monetization. Folks don't always want to do what they have to do for the monetization because people, I mean, they hate selling stuff, they hate contacting people, they hate looking for sponsors. So I mean, I get it. That's probably one of the things I'm contacted about the most is monetizing their efforts on podcasting. The thing though that is probably the biggest challenge that I deal with podcasters is being able to accept constructive criticism. And I think that's one of the hardest parts with any of my students anywhere. And I mean, my students know, hey, when you hire me, I'm going to tell you what's wrong with your podcast because I'm not going to lie to you. And I'm going to give you ideas on how to fix it. And I'm not going to have you be a cookie cutter and be like everybody else. Everybody has their own unique flow. Everybody has their own unique swing, and we need to find that. But there are times when I'll sit with somebody and I'll say, "Hey, I don't care whether you're this way or this way or this way, but this is how it sounds as a listener, okay, as opposed to how it sounds to you as the host. So if you don't want to offend somebody, if you don't want to, hit this group or that group, or if you want to really connect with this target market, these are things you might want to say. These are things you might not want to say. These are ways you want to communicate. These might be words you don't want to use, that type of thing. And people take their podcasts so very personally that they feel like it's an attack on them. And it never is. It's never an attack on them. I don't care what somebody's topic is. I don't care if I agree with it or disagree with it. I'm here to say who is your target market. And it's my job to help you reach your target market so that your podcast can grow. That's what we do. So I'd say that's probably the biggest challenge that folks face out there is realizing that it's all about the listener. It isn't really about you as the host. It's all about the listener. When you're interviewing somebody, it's about the guest and it's about the guest connecting with the listener. It's the service you're providing, you know? And I think too many people just think that the entire situation is all about them. And I mean, hey, if that's what you're doing your podcast for us, because it's all about you, you're going to have a great time doing it, but you're going to have about 14 downloads, an episode. And that's all we can do for you, So it's probably the biggest issue that folks face is accepting that they may have to change something.
Yeah, I remember a few of them talks myself. It does get kind of hard to look in the mirror at yourself sometimes.
Sometimes I know I've had to do it too. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a big person. I review every one of my episodes, man, and I just grill myself like, why in the world did you say that like that? What were you trying to do right there? That didn't make any sense that you just went down that tangent at that moment, right? And I'll be like, well, that was dumb. Let's not do that again. You know, but if you can't self critique, then you need to hire a coach, who can help you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you prefer to work with established podcasters or up and comers, and why?
Oof, good question. I got to be honest. I love them both. There's pros and cons to working with them both. So I'm going to take the chicken answer, and I'm going to say, I love to work with everybody. I really I love working with folks who are new for a lot of reasons because, I think everybody should have a podcast. I just do. I think everybody should have one. Especially if you are in business, if you have a business, if you're an independent contractor, if you are doing any kind of side business, any kind of side hustle, if you're a salesperson of any kind, if you're a realtor, if you're an insurance person, if you're a car salesman, I don't care what you're doing, you need a podcast because the podcast is the new business card out there. You know what I mean? And it's just gigantic to have. Having a podcast puts you head and shoulders above any of your competition that doesn't have one. So I do love helping people start theirs fresh. Um, there's a special sort of relationship, though, with people who are already doing it and just want to get better because those people have already decided, I love podcasting and I want to keep doing it and I want to do more of it. So there's an emotional connection there with people over the fact that they love podcasting and so do I. And so from the get-go in the coaching relationship, we both have that in common of we just love doing what we're doing. And that makes everything a little easier also in terms of, looking at yourself and making some changes because you really want to do the best you can for your podcast, for your guests, for your listeners, because you love it and you love the process so much. So maybe that's probably the best answer I can give you on that
What types of traits do you look for so you to know that they're going to be successful?
one. Ability to be coached, helps. Um, but I think it's a servant mentality right off the bat. If you have a servant's heart and you are doing what you're doing in your podcast, I don't care what your topic is. I don't care if you're talking about grandma's, cookies. I don't care if you're talking about yeah, marijuana. I don't care if you're talking about, sports. If whatever you're doing is something that you love and is something that you love to share, then I think you have a really good chance of succeeding. If for you, for instance, you love talking about mindset. You love talking about, the inner workings of the mind, of attitude, of confidence, of these things. It just comes naturally to you. I think that whole talk does. And when you and I first talked, I was like, man, this guy is just passionate about this. He loves helping his players, his wrestlers. He loves helping other people. He wants to spread this message to help other folks. Um, you just had that coaching mentality about you, you know. And I was like, this guy absolutely is going to be successful. I don't have to teach him how to share. I don't have to teach him how to be passionate. I just need to help him aim that passion and all that feeling that he has into a productive podcast. You know what I mean? You were already a ball of fire.
Yeah.
So, it was just, making sure it stayed lit and helping aim where it was going. So, I mean, when someone is that passionate about the topic, if someone can sit there and have a 20-minute conversation about that topic with anybody, anytime with no prep, they're going to make it. They're absolutely going to make it. Like no problem at all. And when I see that in somebody, I get excited. I'm like, oh, you know, let's do this. Let's go. I can't wait. So it's a
Yeah,
lot of
because
fun.
I'd imagine a lot of people just need like the direction
Hmm.
of which way to go. Because I know me personally, I was stuck. I didn't know what to do because when I came talking to you, my goal was never about doing the podcast. It was about getting on stages to speak.
Hmm.
But I was running into trouble and like I didn't know where to go. Everybody's just like, well, just record yourself and talk. I'm like, okay, but there's nobody here. It was just like weird to me. But I needed you to aim me. Hey, do this. Just give me the steps, and I'll go do the steps.
Yep. And you did. You were very good at doing the steps. I got to be honest with you, brother. I'm really glad you brought that up, though, because that's something that people just don't understand unless they hear it from people like you or from me. And that is that if you want to become a speaker, there's all sorts of speaking coaches out there. They're going to say, all right, well, you want to become a speaker, then let's, get you on a stage, go do a whole bunch of free stuff, drive all over the country and spend money doing, free, gigs. That's great if you have the time and the resources to go do that. But there's another way to do it. Not necessarily a better way, but another way to do it. You can start a podcast. You can get used to speaking. You can get used to interacting. You can get over any stage fright you may have. You can do a solo episode on your own podcast that you are running and record yourself, right? When you do, for instance, when you do some of your short episodes, right? Some of your, 12, 15-minute episodes on a topic, you're doing a talk. It's
Yeah.
what you're doing. So record yourself doing it, put it out as a podcast so that you can start to improve your own, notoriety. You can get, a base of your own fans. And then you also have a recording of you doing the talk. And then when you're ready, send that recording off. The podcast can help you develop into the speaker you want to be. And then when you're ready to take the leap to get on a stage, you have all the experience, you have the links, you have the examples of you doing a talk. Send them all off. People are going to find you. They're going to book you. They're going to bring you on stage. It's another way to do it if you aren't ready to just step up on a stage tomorrow, type of thing. And people think that's easy till they go try and do it.
Yeah.
I think everybody would love to be a speaker, in some way in their own heart. But man, when you stand there on that stage, and I've been there, you stand there on a stage, you talk to thousands of people. It's crazy. I've been built. I don't know what God did to me really, but the first time I ever stepped on a stage, it didn't bother me at all. I don't know why. Everybody makes fun of me for that. I stepped up there. I didn't have anything prepared. I winged it, and it was in front of, I don't know, 600 people. It was one of those giant classrooms at a university, and I did this talk, it was about coaching youth sports. And I didn't have anything prepared. I just said, I'm going to talk about what I know. I'm going to make a few jokes and connect with folks, and I'm just going to talk. And it was awesome. It went fantastic. I think I sold, I don't even know how many programs doing that. And I still have people talking to me about that speech. And that was 20 years ago, and I just stepped up and said, here you go. Let's do this. Most people can't do that. Most people are not going to just stand up in front of 600 people and deliver a speech, for half an hour if they aren't prepared. It's a little daunting. And podcasting is a great way to prepare yourself for that and to get past a lot of those fears and to really get yourself ready to go. So I'm really glad you brought that up. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And then even like some of the, like, even you'll see that you're hosting like people that want to become speakers, all they're doing is guesting to get their signature talk down. So it's a little bit different.
It is different because, they really, and I don't want to say they don't have to prepare, but when you are constantly preparing for different people, when you're on the host side and you're always preparing for different guests and you're doing that research and you're getting your questions ready and, the whole 9 yards, there's a separate kind of connection that you build with those folks. And as the host of the show, you also have to, you're more responsible. As a guest, it is kind of nice. You just show up.
Yeah.
Right. Today I got up, combed my hair, grabbed my coffee, and got on with you. My prep time for this interview was about 18 seconds.
Yeah. That's the one thing people don't understand, the amount of prep work that goes into this. It's like, if I told people what I do to prepare for an interview, they'd be like, are you kidding me? Like, no, I actually put a lot more work than probably a lot of other people do, but I want it to be authentic and have good questioning for people,
I'll tell you that too, and I'll give you kudos for that. You do the best prep work for your episodes of almost any of my students that I can think of. And I tell people about you. When I start to teach people how to do their prep work, I'm like, I coached this guy, Ryan, and this is what he did. Because you really, you go above and beyond. Who your guest is, what they've done, what they're looking for. You listen to other episodes of theirs. You check every box when you bring somebody on, and that is an immense amount of work. People have no idea the work that you put in on that, man. So, power to you, because 100 episodes and you're still doing it. That's wow. Way to go.
Well, I appreciate that, because I kind of got some of that from you. Was when you were like, hey, go listen to these episodes to kind of see if you'd like to bring any of these guys on as guests. So I'd go listen to interviews, and I'm like, listen to these questions and where he's taking it, and that's what I kind of learned. And like, hey, I want to go listen to more episodes from other people so I can kind of see where these guys are leading these people, so I can get to the backstory of everything.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Very nice of you to say that you use some of my stuff as an example. So thanks for that. But you really
Yeah.
have done a fantastic job with it, brother. You really have. So
How has coaching impacted your life and your faith?
wow. Well, I'll answer that's two questions really. Coaching's impacted my life in that I love what I do. I don't have Monday mornings. There is no Sunday night dread. I'm sitting here with my wife on a Sunday night. We may do something for ourselves. I try to take Sundays off. Um, but I work 6 days a week. I work 16-hour days. I start interviewing at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning because I talk to people across the world. I don't stop interviewing till midnight sometimes. I think you and I have been on a couple of those calls. May have
Yeah.
started at like 10:30 at night, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't ever feel like I'm working hard. My life has totally changed because of what I do. And I'm living a life that I always dreamed I could live. So I never thought I'd be able to say that. How it changed my faith, it absolutely has brought me closer to God than I ever thought I could be. I had a very tumultuous relationship with God growing up and, coming up through the ranks. Um, there was a lot of pain there. I had a really rough childhood, and getting through that made me question God a lot. Why are you letting this happen to my mom? Why are you letting it happen to my dad? Or why does it happen to me and my brother? Blah, blah, blah. But by being able to listen to all of the stories that I get to listen to, by encountering all of the people that I encounter, by talking to them about their faith, by hearing their stories, I have learned so much about life, about faith, about the world, that I've been able to take and apply to myself. That, every episode, every interview is a therapy session for me because I get to hear how somebody else has handled their issues, their problems, their obstacles. And in some way, every guest I have on, I have something in common with in some way. And it's been amazing. All of that doesn't happen without my faith, without God, and I think it got me close enough to him that I've really aimed now a lot of my work towards helping other people um, grow their relationship, with God. So, I mean, it's been very big. It's been instrumental, and I'm grateful for all of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember the talks with you when you started your third podcast, Wake Up the Lions, and how you were feeling that call and didn't know which way to go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you remembering that. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was there was some hesitancy. Like, do I really launch this? Is this really what I'm being called to do? Because I mean, I already knew what kind of hate I was going to get,
Yeah.
you know. And I tell you, when I put out the day before I launched the first episode, I think I told you the story. I put out that reel that on Facebook, just on
Yeah.
Facebook, nowhere else, just on Facebook, just saying, "Hey, coming tomorrow, wake up the Lions." And I had the logo that Javier made for me. Right, it was out there, and everything was all good. And it says right on there where Christians come together to share their testimony. And oh my goodness, like over 300 reactions. Okay, comment wise. No, over 300 comments. Let me be clear. Over 300 comments. And I don't even know how many reactions, more than that. But over 300 comments and over 220 plus, I think, were negative. Were like, you better not. This is, you're such a, and they called me everything from a racist to a this to a that to a, I was a homophobe and a trans whatever. I mean, they basically accused me of hating everything in the whole world because I said I'm starting a podcast for Christians, and they went, "You can't do that," and they lost their minds. And dude, one reel, one, one reel, and I launched the next day, and I was reading those comments, just going, "Pfft, you know what? If you're not over the target, then they're not shooting at you."
Yeah.
Okay, so I must be really close to making a difference somewhere, or the devil's not going to line up like this against me. And I just took them in stride. And I have I want to share this with your audience. I do have a policy when it comes to the hate comments, right? And it's bless, block, delete. That's it. And I do the old Catholic, sign of the cross deal, and I'm like, bless, block, delete, and that's it. Because I don't leave the comments on there so that they can infect other people who see the post either. So I block them and delete them. And for that podcast, Wake Up the Lions, I bet I've blocked over 1,000 people so far.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
My block list is huge. It's pretty accomplished. So, hey, if that's how you feel, that's fine. I respect your right to feel that way. I'm not going to give you another platform to spread that hate. Sorry, goodbye, bye.
Yeah.
But but they have bigger issues, man. If they want to spew that kind of hate, then they need you to bless them, and then just cut them out, block them, and delete them. Goodbye, move
You
on.
know,
You must be doing something
very
right.
simple. So, how real would you say spiritual warfare is then?
Oh my gosh. It's funny because as I'm in your hosting mind and I'm going, where's he going with these questions? Where's he going? And I love what you're doing. I love the way you're working the interview. I got to tell you that. Man, spiritual warfare is so incredibly real. I think part of the issue is that people who do believe in spiritual warfare, they want to say that everything is spiritual warfare. Oh, I spilled my coffee. That must be spiritual warfare. Dude, it might have also been just I spilled my coffee. Okay. But by the same token, when you are working on things that are going to make a difference, when you're trying to spread his word, when you're trying to fight against forms of evil in our world, there is spiritual warfare. The devil does line up against you. A lot of things that have happened, a lot of Christians that I know who are a little weak in their faith and are questioning things, which, hey, is great because the Christianity is built to be questioned. It really is. It stands up to any question. As long as you actually take the time to find the answer. But the people who are maybe questioning things, they look at it and they go, how come this guy over here is sitting here, he's watching Netflix, he's drinking beer, he's, living this life of nothing, right? He's not trying to do anything with his life. He's watching porn, everything else. He's doing all the stuff that you really aren't supposed to be doing, right, with your life. But he's just having an easy time. Everything just comes to him. He wins the small lottery stuff and, his job keeps paying him and, nothing gets in his way, right? He's got this house. Well, because he's not a threat. The devil is actually interceding on his behalf. The devil removes obstacles from your path if you aren't a threat because he wants to keep you on the sidelines. He doesn't want you to wake up and realize that there's a God. He doesn't want you to wake up and realize that there's something bigger than you and your own pleasure 5 minutes from now. So he keeps things easy for you. It's the people who are trying to live righteous. It's the people who are trying to spread his word, who are trying to live a Christian-led life, who are trying to raise children the right way, who are trying to spread their legacy by teaching about God, right? Teaching about Jesus, letting the Holy Spirit lead their lives. Those folks are making a difference. I have, 3 children, man. Out of those 2 of them are so completely devout in their faith. One of them's becoming an associate pastor. They lead groups of other men. They're leading this Young Lion movement. Um, some of that came from me. Some came from my wife. Some has just come straight from God. But those are people that I encourage on a daily basis. And by doing that, I'm encouraging them to help all the people they're helping. And you don't think spiritual warfare hits them? Oh my gosh, it does. They have every obstacle in the world thrown in their path because they're a threat, because they're making a difference. So, you on your podcast, right? The things you're trying to do, the stuff the message you want to spread, the message of hope and of self-reliance and of reliance on God and on picking yourself up by your bootstraps. Your comeback story, Ryan, okay, is so incredibly powerful that I'm not surprised by any of the spiritual warfare that lands in your path.
Yeah.
I'm really not, because the forces of evil are doing everything they can do to keep you down, because you are going to make that big of a difference, and you are already. So I absolutely believe in spiritual warfare. I've seen it too many times, and I think that's what people need to realize is that
Yeah.
when you have those things happen, it's because you're a threat. So embrace them.
Yeah.
Keep on going.
Yeah, like we said, I had that talk with you on your own on that Wake Up the Lions podcast about spiritual warfare and my
Yeah.
belief on that, and what I've kind of figured out about it.
Yeah, that's actually my second rated episode. That's like the number 2 most listened to episode of all of
Really
them. Yeah, people love you on that show. It was great.
crazy because we just kind of threw it together.
It's the best kind sometimes,
Yeah,
man,
it's like, hey, you want to come on? I think I got time this weekend. Come on,
Yep,
instead of doing your coaching call, we'll do it right after.
that's right. I think we did it first thing in the morning. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it was very powerful, and I absolutely believe that there is spiritual warfare for
Yeah.
sure, brother.
How do you help people find their true purpose?
Oof, great question. That's something that's really vital in podcasting because it so comes from the heart. But in any of the coaching that I do, that's a big deal. Is trying to figure out who you are, trying to figure out where you want to go, what you want to do, what matters to you. It's a process, man. It really is. But in terms of how you help them, you have to start tearing down the walls. Um, Most people come to work with me because okay, I want to do this. I want to say monetize. I really want to do this. I want to get ads. Halfway into it, you realize they have other things they want to do. They have groups of people that they want to help. Their heart is in a completely different place. They think they should be monetizing, and so that's why they're calling me in the first place. Then you really start breaking down the walls, and you find out that they're sad or they're disappointed that they're not making the impact that they want to make. There's things like that that happen. Everybody, I think, whether you know it or not, is looking for your purpose. And it isn't something where you can just sit down and, start writing a list and go, what is my why? Well, it could be these, it could be this. It doesn't happen easy. It doesn't happen fast. And you really have to kind of look at your life and where you picture yourself. So breaking it down with folks, having some good conversations about who you are, good conversations about what it is you hope to accomplish, um, and kind of digging into your life and what your life's mission has been. Those are things that really have to happen. And finding purpose is something that we all want. Finding purpose is something that's really, really tough to do. But going down the path is where I kind of find my role in what I'm doing because so many people come to me with, podcasting or speaking or writing or being a father and a husband, and they haven't even started down the path yet. They're just saying, I'm unhappy or things aren't working. I don't really know why. And we have to dig into that. So very often we'll have a couple coaching sessions just on that. I had someone I took on a little while ago and was working with her, and halfway through the first coaching session we realized she didn't even have her target market defined as to who she was really going after or why. And with a lot of work we found out who it was, we found out why it was. And I'd say by the third coaching session, we were actually talking more about why she wanted to help those people. And that changed everything. She looked back at her whole podcast and everything she'd been doing and said, you know what? I'm not on the right track, am I? Then it's like, you're putting out a good podcast by all of the metrics. But if this is really what you want to be accomplishing, what we've kind of come to today, what do we think we need to change? And you know what? It's a completely different podcast than it was a month ago. And that's just because she found her purpose. And that took off. It's not an thing is goes to be 20 downloads per episode ish. And now she's up over 100. And all she
Huh.
did was change what she was aiming at and change her purpose. It's been really amazing. Yeah.
Great story. What advice would you give to our audience about facing their fears and stepping into their purpose?
Goodness. Um, I think you've said this, so I'm probably quoting you right now, and I don't even know it, but I think I am. Um, you find your purpose on the other side of fear, and that's really what it's all about. You have to get through those fears. Those fears are more than likely part of spiritual warfare. Those fears have been put there so that you can't easily go find your purpose, because your purpose is probably that powerful. Um, Anyone's purpose is powerful. And I think we all have one. So finding that purpose, stepping into it, fighting those fears, the fear is the thing that has to be dealt with. And the first step to that, brother, is identifying it. It's, what are you afraid of? There's a school of thought that says, do the hard thing first. I used to coach realtors on that. And quick story, because I know we're long on time, but I used to coach realtors on that. And I had people, for instance, who were scared to death of picking up the phone and making a cold call. They didn't want to pick up a phone and call someone they'd never talked to before. They were petrified. And they were following that do the hard thing first stuff. And they just stared at the phone. They got nothing done. So I was like, well, let's find a way around it then. If we can't go through it, then let's go around it. Because you're a coach, you know this. There are people that you can coach to say, go through the wall. There's people who can't go through that wall no matter how much you coach them. So you coach them to go around the wall. If they can't go around the wall, you say, go over the wall. Maybe you have to dig under the wall. There's a way around the wall, but everybody's different. And so I think that's part of the deal, is there's a way to deal with your fear. Sometimes you have to deal with it by going around. Sometimes you have to deal with it by going over. And sometimes you have to just put your head down and plow right through it. You and I are guys that plow right through it. You and I are guys that do the hard thing first. We put our head down. We bust it on the wall until the wall breaks. But that's who we are. Not everybody's built like that.
No.
So you got to find your path around the wall. And that's one of the things that I do with people. And, for instance, on the phone call thing, maybe your first thing is to send them a letter. Okay. Then after that, you send them an email, and then try to call them, because the first thing you can say is, hey, did you get my letter? Now it's no longer a cold call, right? Now it's, you're calling with a reason. Wanted to make sure you got my letter, and you've broken the ice some other way. That's going around the wall.
Yeah.
That's something that has to happen. But the idea that, well, I'm afraid of this, so I'm just not going to do it. That's how you never get to purpose, because it's on the other side, man.
Yep. I completely agree with that. How can people get a hold of you?
Easiest way to reach me, honestly, and I hate saying this because, I'm a top 5% podcaster now, and I probably should have like this huge website and everything else, but I'm a minimalist, so I just don't believe in all that. Easiest way to reach me is on Facebook, brother. All my stuff is there. I talk about all my podcasts there. You can message me on Messenger. It's the easiest thing in the world. So on Facebook, I'm at Rory Paquette. My name's on the screen. RoryPaquette. Just find me on Facebook. If you can't find me there, you can find me on Instagram under the same name, at Rory Paquette. You can still message me. And if you don't have Facebook or Instagram, then you have bigger problems, and you probably don't need to be talking to me anyway. So find me on one of those platforms, and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, because eventually, if they want to work with you, they're going to have to get them and start building it up anyway. So, and I'm telling you that from experience.
If you're calling me about coaching and you don't have either of those, you got bigger problems. Start there.
Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
Oh, goodness, brother. I can't imagine. I mean, we've covered a lot of stuff, but the one thing I do want to just reiterate is for all your people who listen to your show, and I know you got a lot of fans, man, is you really have earned it. And I'm just really, really proud of you, and not in any kind of condescending way, just as a man. I'm really proud of what you have done. I know the obstacles you've had to overcome along the way. And every single time you put out an episode, man, I just thump my chest and go, man, nice. Keep going, Ryan. And I'm just incredibly proud to be associated with your success in any way. And thank you for allowing me to be on today, man. It was great.
Hey, thank you for coming on. Hey, thank you for all you've done to help me get here. Because, like I said, I needed direction and I did not know which way to go. And like you said, God wants me to help you. I feel like in my heart when you told me that one day, I feel like God's telling me I'm supposed to help you.
Yep, 100%. Still feel that way. Yep.
Yeah.
Really glad.
All right. Final question. What is one piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
Oh, boy. You asked the best questions. Overcoming adversity. I think the best thing that I can say to that is that there is not something that has been placed in your path that you can't overcome. It may seem like you can't. You may really believe that you can't. I'm telling you, whether you go through it, whether you go around it, whether you go over it, whether you go under it, there is a way to handle your adversity. It is not always pleasant. Most of the time, it's not. But no matter what has been put in your path, there's always a way. So never give up on that. No matter what it is, never give up on it. Never, ever believe the lie that you can't do something. And, I will say it. If you have not developed a relationship with Jesus, that is a huge component of getting past that adversity, because we can't always handle things on our own that easily. And sometimes you need a hand. And if you reach out, if you open your hand, he'll be there for you. I'll leave it with that.
All right. Great advice, man. Well, thanks again, Rory, for coming on. It was a great listen to you, give your backstory and everything.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Loved it.
Awesome. Well, guys, that's gonna be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.